Have you ever wondered why the singing of birds captivates us so deeply? Why does it sometimes seem that their voices are not just sounds of nature, but an echo of something ancient, lost, yet simultaneously familiar and close? Could it be that their melodies somehow penetrate our consciousness, opening doors deep within the human soul, in the dawn of humanity, when the world was still young and only beginning to gain strength, the birds were already here. Their wings sliced through the skies, and their songs filled the silence of the primordial world. The Bible has numerous mentions of birds. They accompanied great events, becoming symbols of wisdom, strength, or, conversely, weakness. But most importantly, they have always been close to humans. As if nature itself were trying to say something, to convey something through these weightless beings. Can you imagine Noah standing at the top of the ark, surrounded by the floodwaters that swallowed everything he once knew? Around him lies silence, broken only by the sound of waves and the breathing of the surviving animals. And then a dove appears, a symbol of peace and hope, flying over a world that is beginning to live again. What feeling fills a man's heart when he sees this winged creature? It is not just a bird. It is a sign that the world is ready to be reborn, that there is light at the end of even the darkest path. Birds have always been present at moments when humanity stood on the brink of something new, something that required faith and hope. Their singing reminds us that even in the darkest times, there is always a voice of nature calling us forward. Noah's dove is not only a testimony to the end of the flood but also a symbol of new life, a new beginning that always follows destruction. How many times have we, facing life's storms, heard that mysterious call from nature? Perhaps it is the same voices that Noah heard when he stood on his ark, but how can birds influence us so profoundly? Perhaps because their songs belong not just to this world. They seem to transcend the boundaries of time, penetrating the depths of our souls and evoking a response. Have you ever wondered if the singing of birds might be a reflection of what we feel but cannot express in words? But what do we hear in these sounds? Perhaps they are not just melodies of nature, but something more, the voice of the Creator Himself, whispering to us through winged messengers. Consider this: in every chirp of a bird lies an infinite world of sounds that can sometimes be incomprehensible, yet capable of awakening something ancient and long forgotten within us. These are not just the sounds of spring or twilight, they are a response to the deep strings of our souls. Recall the raven that Noah first sent out from the ark. He did not return. What seems special about that? Just a bird that flew off to seek dry land. But imagine the moment when Noah stands on the deck, watching the raven, spreading its black wings, disappear over the horizon. The silence it leaves behind seems to hint at something unfathomable. Perhaps it is a sign that the old world has truly perished, that everything has changed and will not return. This silent flight symbolizes our own fears of the unknown and of loss, and then, after some time, a dove appears. It returns with an olive branch, the first sign of life. The dove has always been a symbol of peace, but in that moment, it becomes something more, a conduit between worlds. It carries not only a branch in its beak but also the hope of rebirth, of a new beginning. This moment is like a revelation. The dove brings Noah not just news that the earth is once again ready to receive life, but also the assurance that God has not forsaken him. How often do we ourselves wait for such a sign to affirm that there is light ahead, and our trials are not eternal? Can we say that birds have been a bridge between heaven and earth, between man and God, since ancient times? When we hear their singing, are they not trying to communicate something more to us than mere sounds of nature? Perhaps it is a reminder that we are not alone in this world, that there are always winged guardians watching over our paths. Have you ever wondered why birds frequently appear in literature and sacred texts? Perhaps it is because they embody a freedom that is unattainable to man, yet one he constantly longs for. Their flight symbolizes the soul's aspiration to break free from the shackles of the earth, to rise above the daily hustle and worries, to come closer to the heavens. But at the same time, their singing serves as a reminder that, despite our attachment to the earth, we can be closer to God if we remain attentive to the voices of nature. The singing of birds is not merely music, it is an ancient language through which the Creator speaks to us. Have you ever considered that each note, each trill, is an invitation to look deeper within ourselves, to hear the echo of our own soul, which we sometimes forget in the hustle of the world? Have you ever noticed how different birds evoke different feelings in us? Some are embodiments of peace and tranquility, while others stir anxiety and constant worry. But what can they tell us about ourselves? Can you recall the birds most frequently mentioned in the Bible and what they symbolize? Let's begin with the dove. In Scripture, the dove appears multiple times, and it is no coincidence that its singing and image have firmly entered human culture as symbols of care and faith. Its appearance in Noah's Ark was not merely a sign of a new beginning. The dove became a symbol that God cares for humanity even in the most difficult moments of life. Can you imagine the relief Noah felt at the return of the dove with the olive branch? That moment, after long days of uncertainty, when the floodwaters loomed over the world, became a sign that the earth was ready to accept life again, was like a breath of fresh air for his weary soul. The dove is also an image of the Holy Spirit descending upon Jesus at his baptism. Can you envision that scene when John the Baptist stands by the Jordan River, and suddenly the heavens open, and a dove descends upon Jesus? This is not just a symbol of baptism by water, but an act of how God's grace touches each of us. And in that moment, the singing of birds might have sounded like music to those lost in deep contemplation. It is the gentle, soft, but assured presence of God, who cares for everyone, just as he cared for the dove. However, not all birds bring such feelings of calm and peace. There are others that convey much more anxiety, one of which is the sparrow. This small, bustling bird seems always in motion, always searching for something. It symbolizes uncertainty, worries, and anxiety about tomorrow. Doesn't this resemble us? How many times in life do we worry about the future, trying to predict what will happen tomorrow, where our path will lead? How often do we, like the sparrow, flit about, forgetting that the world does not belong to us, and that time is in God's hands? Yet, interestingly, in the Bible, the sparrow serves as a reminder of God's care. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny? And not one of them will fall to the ground apart from your Father. Matthew 10 verse 29. This simple statement should calm our worries. If God cares even for sparrows, how much more does he care for us? Have you ever thought about this? Can we remember, in our fidgeting and anxiety about the future, that the world is arranged more wisely than we think and that our concerns are trivial compared to the greatness of the Creator? The sparrows flying above our heads, fluttering about on the ground, seem to remind us that life will not always go as we plan. Yet their singing, strangely enough, still brings comfort. It resembles an endless melody of life, where each note finds its place. Even in the hustle, one can hear harmony if they listen closely. So it is in our lives, when anxieties engulf us, perhaps it is worth slowing down and remembering that with each of our steps, God watches over us, just as he sees and observes the sparrows. The singing of the sparrow is like a whisper from God telling us, I see you. I care for you, just as I care for every creature in this world. And each time we hear the singing of these small birds, we can reflect, aren't we under the same care? Comparing a dove and a sparrow, one could say that they represent 2 facets of our lives. The dove reminds us of the peace and tranquility that God is ready to give us if we choose to trust him. The sparrow, on the other hand, represents our constant worries and hustle, while also reminding us that we are not alone in our concerns. Have you ever thought that every time a moment of anxiety arises in your life, it's like a sparrow landing on a branch, busy, but only for a moment? Through the song of birds, we learn to listen and understand the profound truths that often lie hidden behind the simplest things. Have you ever wondered why the eagle always evokes admiration and awe in us? This mighty bird soaring in the sky seems to be connected to something lofty and unattainable. The eagle is a symbol of strength, freedom, and magnificence. But what else lies behind its image, which often appears in the Bible and other sacred texts? Picture a majestic eagle gliding high above the earth, unhurried, like a sailboat in the sky. Its wings are spread wide, barely moving, using the wind's power to propel itself. What makes us hold our breath when we see it? Why does this flight evoke a sense of reverent fear and respect? Perhaps it's because in the eagle, we see the embodiment of what each of us aspires to rise above earthly worries, to break free from burdens, and to reach for something greater. In the Bible, the eagle is often mentioned as a symbol of renewal and strength. In the book of Isaiah, it is said, "But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength, they will soar on wings like eagles, they will run and not grow weary, they will walk and not be faint." Isaiah 40 verse 31. Can you imagine this image? In moments when a person is exhausted, when strength is failing, God offers renewal, comparing it to an eagle rising above all trials and difficulties. This is a promise of strength that surpasses human abilities. How often in our lives do we feel tired, drained, unable to continue on our path? Yet, every time we see an eagle in the sky, its flight reminds us that there is a source of strength higher than ourselves. The eagle also symbolizes rebirth. Have you heard the legend that eagles live a long life, but at some point, they undergo a process of renewal? It is said that when an eagle ages, its beak and claws become too weak to procure food, and its feathers become heavy and hinder its flight. Then, the eagle retreats to the mountains, where it spends long months renewing itself. It breaks its old beak, sheds its worn feathers and claws, and, after undergoing this painful process, emerges renewed, ready to soar again. This image reflects what happens to a person in times of spiritual crises. We go through periods of pain, loss, and doubt, but at the end of this path, if we find the strength to trust God, we can attain renewal and rebirth. Can you recall times in your life when it seemed you had reached your limit, that you had no strength to go on? But then, like an eagle, you found the strength to renew yourself and rise to a new level? These aren't just coincidences, they are part of the divine plan that unfolds before us in such moments. The eagle shows us that even through pain and hardships, we can rise again, obtaining new strength. But renewal isn't the only thing that makes the eagle special. This bird symbolizes insight and wisdom. Eagles are known for their keen vision and ability to spot prey from great distances. They can focus on their target and pursue it despite difficulties. This image resonates deeply with our lives. How often do we lose our bearings, distracted by trivial matters, overlooking what truly matters? But the eagle teaches us about focus. Its sharp gaze reminds us of the importance of maintaining a clear vision of our goals, not getting sidetracked by the chaos around us. In the Bible, the eagle is also a symbol of protection and divine care. In the book of Deuteronomy, it says, "Like an eagle that stirs up its nest and hovers over its young, that spreads its wings to catch them and carries them on its pinions, so the Lord alone guided him." Deuteronomy 32 verse 11. Can you visualize this picture? God is compared to an eagle that protects and supports its chicks, teaching them to fly, yet always ready to catch them if they fall. This is an image of love and care that every father or mentor can recognize in themselves. How often do we, like chicks, feel unsure in life, afraid to take a step, while God is always nearby, spreading his wings of protection? Thus, the eagle is not only a symbol of strength but also an image of spiritual renewal, clarity of vision, and divine protection. Every time we see it in flight, can we contemplate that it reminds us that there is always a path to renewal in our lives if only we can rise above earthly cares and trust in God? Have you ever wondered why a crow evokes such conflicting feelings within us? Its black plumage, hoarse cry, and mysterious flight have always been surrounded by an aura of mystique. Crows have often been associated with something ominous, a harbinger of doom. Yet, remarkably, in the Bible, this enigmatic bird also symbolizes care and God's mercy. How can this be? How can a creature that we have come to regard with wariness become a herald of kindness and concern for humanity? Recall the prophet Elijah. At a moment when he was threatened by death from hunger and thirst, God sent him help, but not in the way one might expect. It was not angels or human beings who brought Elijah food, but crows. In the first book of Kings, 17:4-6, we read how the crow brought him bread and meat every day. Imagine this astonishing moment, a lone, exhausted prophet on the brink of life and death, and suddenly crows, those very birds associated with death, bring him food and save him. How is this possible? This image raises many questions for us. How often in life do we think that help can only come from obvious sources? We expect salvation from those who love us, from those who are close or whom we trust. But sometimes help comes from the most unexpected places, from those we regard as foreign or even dangerous. How often do we reject this help, not believing that it can come from where we least expect it? The crows bringing food to Elijah symbolize God's mercy that can manifest through the most unexpected means. Perhaps this image reminds us that nothing in our lives is trivial, and even in the darkest, most frightening moments, salvation may be hidden. Have you ever thought that in moments of despair and loneliness, help may come from those you once considered incapable of mercy? But the crow isn't only a symbol of unexpected help. In the Bible, this bird also reminds us of God's providence. In the Gospel of Luke, 12:24, Jesus says, "Consider the ravens, they do not sow or reap, they have no storeroom or barn, yet God feeds them. And how much more valuable you are than birds." This passage compels us to reflect on the Creator's care for every living being on earth. Ravens, which might seem a symbol of independence and even a certain cruelty of nature, actually live under God's constant care. Can we, by observing these birds, understand that we, despite our fears and worries, are always under His protection? Interestingly, the ravens mentioned in the Bible often act contrary to our expectations. They seem to go against the roles we ascribe to them. Perhaps therein lies a profound truth: we should not judge by appearances or by preconceived notions. Often, what we perceive as a symbol of darkness can turn out to be a source of light. Crows also teach us humility and the awareness that we do not always understand God's designs. Sometimes help can come through those we considered enemies or who could not be part of our journey. In this, the greatness of the Creator is revealed, who uses any means to show us His love. Have you ever thought that in moments when the world seems harsh and unjust, it is through these crows that God may show you He is always near? When Elijah received food from the beaks of these birds, he understood that every piece of bread was not just a gift, but a sign that God had not abandoned him in his distress. It was a lesson in trust and awareness that mercy can manifest even through those we have learned to fear. However, crows also bear another, deeper lesson. Their image is a reminder that life often has hidden layers of meaning that we do not see at once. Their presence in the story of Elijah teaches us that fate can be unpredictable, and God's mercy can be multifaceted. Sometimes it manifests in forms that we cannot comprehend with our minds. Have you ever thought that every unexpected help, every sign of fate, is a kind of crow that arrives at the right moment to remind us that nothing in this world happens by chance, and so it is in life? Sometimes the darkest and most mysterious moments can turn out to be the most important. The crow is a symbol of this mystery that we cannot always unravel, but which always carries with it a sign of God's care. Have you ever wondered why swallows always return to their old nests, no matter how far their journey is? These little birds, overcoming vast distances, always return to where they once were happy, where warm walls and the nests they built with such diligence await them. Swallows are a symbol of fidelity, devotion, and that very hope that brings us back home when it seems that all paths are closed. In the Bible, swallows are rarely mentioned, but when they are brought up, it is always in connection with the theme of home and God's dwelling. Psalm 84 verse 4 says, "Even the sparrow finds a home, and the swallow a nest for herself, where she may lay her young, near your altars, O Lord of hosts, my King and my God." Imagine this scene, a temple, a sanctuary where not only people but also birds seek peace. A swallow building its nest at the altar seems to know that there it will find protection and safety. How often do we ourselves seek a similar home for our souls, a place where we can find peace and comfort? This little bird reminds us that fidelity is not just a feeling, it is an action. Just as the swallow returns to its nest, even if it has to fly thousands of kilometers, so we are called to remain faithful to those places, those people, and those principles that have shaped us. The swallow does not leave its home forever, it always returns despite the dangers encountered along the way. Can you remember moments when you, like the swallow, overcame difficulties to return to where your heart finds peace? The swallow is a symbol of home, but not in a material sense, rather in a spiritual one. It teaches us that home is not just a physical place where we live, but a space where our soul finds refuge. In our lives, we often lose this sense of spiritual home, especially when we are overwhelmed by the hustle and bustle of daily cares. But, like the swallows, we can always return to our inner refuge, to that place where our faith resides. Perhaps this is what the psalmist meant when he mentioned the swallows at the Lord's altar. It symbolizes our need for spiritual closeness, for returning to the roots that give us strength and meaning. Have you ever wondered why swallows so often build their nests under the roofs of churches? They, more than anyone else, feel where they can find protection. But interestingly, they do not wait for this protection passively. They work hard, building their nests, putting in effort to create their little fortress. This is an important lesson for us. We often expect safety and peace from life, but are we ready to work for it ourselves? Are we willing, like the swallows, to build our nests where our souls can find true refuge? In these little creatures lies immense wisdom. Swallows symbolize not only fidelity but also hope. Their return after months of wandering is a promise that after winter, spring will always come, that life continues despite all trials. No matter how difficult your situation may be, doesn't it remind you that there is always a place for hope in life, always a possibility to return to the light, to warmth, to what makes you stronger? But the swallow also carries another important lesson, a lesson about temporality and inevitable changes. Unlike the eagle, which forever remains in the sky, or the sparrow, which is always on the move, swallows return home only temporarily. Their home is a temporary shelter, a place where they raise their young, but then they set off on the journey once again. This is a reminder that everything in life is transient. We cannot remain in one place forever, no matter how strongly we are drawn there. Swallows teach us to be ready for changes, that sometimes even our most beloved places must be left behind for life to continue. This is a complex but wise truth that we sometimes forget. Can you imagine yourself in the place of a swallow when it returns home after a long journey? The feeling of peace and safety when every corner is familiar, when the branches of the nest seem to be the most reliable in the world. But then comes the time to fly into the unknown once again. Swallows, like us, cannot escape change, but they show us that returning to our roots always gives strength for new paths. Swallows, despite their apparent fragility, represent an example of incredible spirit. They cover vast distances, face winds and storms, but always return home. Have you ever thought that each of us, like the swallow, can always find the way back, even if the path seems long and difficult? Swallows teach us not only about fidelity and hope but also that there is always room for return in life. Just as they fly thousands of kilometers to return to their home, so we can find the strength to overcome any challenges, knowing that at the end of the road, our spiritual home awaits us, the one we build in our hearts with God's help. Have you ever wondered why birds in various cultures and religions have become symbols of the human soul? From starlings to tits, from parrots to woodpeckers, Each bird has its unique story, its symbolism, and its connection to humanity. But what do they all have in common? How does their diversity reflect different aspects of our soul and human life? Birds are not simply creatures inhabiting the earth, they are also symbols of our hopes, fears, and aspirations. For example, the starling, which gathers in flocks, may symbolize unity and community. They arrive together, build nests, and care for their offspring. This image of solidarity is essential for each of us, especially in tough times. Have you ever felt how the support of friends and loved ones enables you to rise above problems, like starlings gathering in one place for communal nesting? And what about parrots? Bright, exotic, they are often associated with joy, fun, and communication. In some cultures, parrots are viewed as messengers bringing news from the other world. This image raises the question, how often do we hear the voice within ourselves, that inner dialogue that speaks to us about hope and life? When was the last time you listened to your inner parrots reminding you that life is full of vibrant colors and amazing opportunities? The woodpecker, with its characteristic pecking, reminds us of hard work and persistence. This bird does not give up, even when it must work hard to achieve its goal. Each peck on the tree is a step towards creating its nest and future offspring. The woodpecker teaches us that achieving something meaningful requires effort, a steadfast journey toward our goals despite difficulties. When have you considered how often your persistence and patience bear fruit? Birds not only teach us but also serve as metaphors for profound human experiences. For example, the sparrow, which often symbolizes vulnerability and humility, shows that even the simplest and smallest creatures have significance. Psalm 102 verse 7 states, "Even the sparrow finds a home, and the swallow a nest for herself." This image reminds us that even in the most challenging conditions, we can always find a place where we can feel safe. Have you ever found your nest in the world around you? A place where you could be yourself and feel accepted? Each bird, regardless of its size or species, carries its unique symbolism, reminding us of the diversity of human experience. But it is important to remember that, despite this diversity, all birds are united by one, freedom. The free flight, the drive for heights, and the ability to see the world from a bird's eye view are what connect us to them. In moments when we feel constrained by everyday life and routine, can we take a cue from birds and allow our souls to soar into the sky? Birds also teach us about change and adaptation. Just as they migrate in search of better living conditions, so we, as humans, must be ready for changes. Sometimes we need to leave our comfort zones to discover something new and better. This can be challenging, but it is in this process that we grow. Have you ever felt that by leaving old habits or places, you open yourself to new horizons and opportunities? Some birds, like storks, often symbolize new beginnings and heralds of joy. These birds return to their nests every year, bringing with them spring and new breath of life. Their every appearance is a reminder that after winter, spring always comes. When was the last time you felt that after a difficult period in your life, a new beginning arrived like the fresh breath of spring, bringing joy and hope? Birds not only enrich our lives but also serve as reflections of our own aspirations and internal conflicts. They remind us that, like them, we can soar higher, strive for our dreams, and find freedom if only we allow ourselves to do so. Each bird, from the majestic eagle to the humble sparrow, reminds us that we are part of something greater than ourselves. We are part of this world, which is full of beauty, diversity, and wonders. Thus, the images of birds in literature and religion show us that, despite various circumstances, each of us is capable of flight, capable of hope and faith. Do not forget to listen to your inner birds, finding wisdom and inspiration in them. Every time you see a bird, remember that it is not just a creature but a message reminding you of freedom, hope, and the possibility of starting anew. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the content. It would make me very happy, and I will create even more content.